For instance, I can think of 5 or 6 different usages of the word giant, right? It can be symbolic, like, I don't know,
Sure.
Elon Musk is a giant of business.
Right.
Well, you don't think there's anything unusually tall about him. It's just, right? Some people mean subjectively unusual height. How subjective? Well, it's vague and generic. Some people mean inches taller. Some people mean feet taller. Some people mean entire body lengths taller. And then biblically, if you're appealing to the word giant, you're either talking about Nephilim or you're talking about Rephaim. And in the Septuagint, maybe you're talking about Gibborim. So
Right.
how is the average reader or listener supposed to know which one of those you mean when you use it?
Right.
So that's another area we need to push back, is to constantly ask, what do you mean by giant? Now, it turns out what Gary meant is subjectively unusually tall. So when I was pushing back a lot, on that may be the strictly modern English usage of that word. It's not the original meaning or definition of that word, because it comes from the Greek gigantes or gigas. Now let me point something out that's really interesting here. I was looking at the Douglas Harper online dictionary of etymology. Okay, that's not written by like an anonymous teenager in their mother's basement. Okay, this is academic. And for the word giant, this is part of the etymology it gives. The Greek word here talking about gigantes or gigas. Okay, the Septuagint uses gigantes. The Greek word was used in Septuagint to refer to men of great size and strength, hence the expanded use in modern languages. In the English, very tall and unusually large person. Okay, now let's digest that for a second. So it's telling us that the way that the Septuagint used it was to identify men of great height or men of great size. And that's why in English today, it's used of very tall, unusually large persons, which incidentally is what I was explaining to Gary. The English word giant comes from gigantes or gigas, but since we were doing a Bible debate, Bible-based debate, then it's gigantes in any case. Now, the Septuagint uses the word gigantes of Nephilim and of Rephaim and of Gibborim.
Right, so 3 different types of personages.
Well,
right?
yeah. Now, let's start there. Those are very different words, right? Nephilim, Rephaim, Gibborim, right? Nephal, Rapha, Gibbor. It'd be very unusual in a language that 3 very different words actually mean the same thing. But let that go for a second, because the point isn't the Hebrew, really. It's the way that it was rendered into Greek, not even translated, rendered into Greek. And I hope we understand that when it comes to translations, there's such a thing as formal versus dynamic translations. So a formal translation would be like word for word, very literalist, even if it makes the reading a little difficult because it's being so literalistic. A dynamic one would be closer to a mild paraphrase, where you might not get every word rendered, but you're going to get the meaning made a little clearer. So, okay, Nephilim. Can we say that they were men of great size, very tall, unusually large persons? Gary Wayne himself admitted that we do not know how tall they were. Okay, so that's the end of that. Now, Rephaim, could we say they were of great size, very tall, unusually large persons?
No.
Well, King Og of Bashan was a Repha, and Gary Wayne admitted that we do not know how tall he was. Now, you have subgroups of Rephaim, such as the Anakim. So think about it like a tribe and a clan, right? what we're told about the Anakim in Deuteronomy 2 is that they were, quote unquote, tall. Okay, now the word tall is as subjective as the word giant, or for that matter, the term great size, very tall, or unusually large. Those are all vague, generic, and subjective terms. So this is the key, is the cultural context and the historical context and the anthropological context, which is that they were tall compared to the average Israelite male of those days, who was around 5 feet, maybe 5'3". And we talked about this during the debate. So therefore, someone who's like 6'5", for instance, yeah, that would definitely be a tall person. No. So you see how subjective. Now,
Right.
what about Giborim? Well, a lot of the pop researchers do talk about the Giborim as if they're a people group, but it's not whatsoever. Gibor is just a descriptive term referring to might or mighty. So, does the word Gibor imply great size? No. Very tall? No. Unusually large? No. Strength? Yeah. Okay, maybe. I mean, of course, the person could be mighty even if they're a weakling, right? If they have a lot of money, for instance, but whatever. The point is, here we have an academic resource telling us gigantes in the Septuagint refers to great size, very tall, and usually large, and we see that it fails all three tests. All of them it fails. And that's the kind of problems that we're dealing with in researching these issues, that you look at a source that's supposed to be reliable and it's not whatsoever. Now, I believe one thing we saw tonight is what I've come to term keyword-based theology, where you look up a keyword, you read every text in which it appears, and then you just string those texts together regardless of context. So you have data points in those verses, and then you just draw a line straight through them regardless of what context those verses are in. Then we saw an employment of the term giants based on the strictly modern definition of what it means, not what the Torah was meaning from 3.5 millennia ago. And we saw a definition of giants imposed upon us by a modern-day grammatical English dictionary, not the context of the Torah that, again, is in a whole different language from a whole different culture from millennia ago. So let's quickly review if we're going to say that we were talking about giants, and, well, that's the topic of the debate. Nephilim, it was admitted we don't know how tall they were, so you can't refer to them as giants. Rephaim, that was really like a broad reference to a bunch of people group. For example, Anakim are a Rephaim subgroup, so it's kind of like tribe and clan, right? We know that some of the Rephaim were described as quote-unquote tall, like the Anakim. Now that's subjective, as we agreed, to the average Israelite male who was 5 foot 5'3". So being taller than 5 foot 5'3", not really impressive. Og, it was admitted that we don't know his height, but we have to kind of conjecture to try to figure out that maybe we can guess how tall he was. And the issue of Goliath was that we have 3 early attestations about his height. We have a later one that Gary prefers, and I don't have a problem going with the latter one. I mean, that's fine with me. I just still not sure what that has to do with anything. So Nephilim, we don't know their height. Og, we don't know his height. Rephaim in general, we're not really told, but we know some of them were subjectively tall. And then the issue of Goliath. So when it comes down to it, we virtually have nothing to discuss in terms of giants in the Bible, primarily because you must understand when you're reading the English word giants in the Bible, you're really either reading the term Nephilim in Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33, or you're reading the word Rephaim in 98% of every other single case, and in no case does giant or Rephaim or Nephilim imply anything about unusual height. That's just being imposed upon the text based on modern day usages of that word. So that's where we stand.